Hello everybody, semi-retired Bob here. If this is your first time to the channel, let me say welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I talk about all things carnivore while I do my walks. Just so you know, just 4.5 months ago, I couldn't even stand for 2.5 minutes. But today, we're going to ask the question, is this country getting too fat? How unhealthy are we? Well, let's just jump right into it here. I actually wrote down a few things here so I wouldn't forget them, because we all know how great I am at remembering things. The thing I want to point out here is that I found some studies that were looking at how many people, and this is just with the United States, I don't know about all you people watching down under and over in Europe, UK, Ireland, all those places, Poland. I have viewers all over the world. You'll have to look up the stats for your own country to see where you're at. But I found this more than a little alarming. We all know what metabolic syndrome is. Metabolic syndrome, of course, is the combination of things that determine whether you have a high risk or not a high risk for cardiovascular disease. And those are, according to to all the studies, they're reading a blood glucose level of less than 100. But that's a fasting thing. And unless you're in really bad shape, most people's fasting glucose is going to go under 100. So I don't think that's a great marker. The good marker I think to use now is an A1C, which is your hemoglobin A1C. If that's below 5.6, you're probably okay. But you should probably get a C-peptide as well. I have no idea what C-peptide is. I know it sort of shows how much insulin you're making. But if you really want to know about C-peptide, just type C-peptide into the YouTube search. And there are several doctors out there that will explain to you what C-peptide checks. I don't get it. I just know that it's one of those things that the book that Dr. Barry wrote with Kim Howerton, Common Sense Labs, suggests getting a C-peptide, so I got a C-peptide. He looked at the results and said, marvelous. That's all I really know about C-peptide. Another thing that I think is kind of antiquated on what they're talking about is your waist circumference. They say waist circumference should be less than 40 inches for a guy and less than 35 inches for a gal. I think, I'm pretty sure it was Dr. Sean Baker, that made a video about waist to height ratio, which again is, I think, a better marker than just setting some random number at how small your waist should be. Because, if you're a big guy like Sean or Dr. Baker, I have no idea what his waist measures, but he's certainly going to have a waist that's bigger around than somebody that's my height at, even if I'm getting close to optimal weight, it's obvious that he's in a lot better shape than I am. So I think the waist to height ratio is probably a better indicator there. And then, of course, they talk about, your cholesterol, which is your, the numbers they look at is, your HDL should be greater than 40 as a guy, greater than 50 as a gal, and your triglycerides should be under 150. And those numbers seem to be pretty good, but there are several doctors out there that are talking more about HDL to triglyceride ratio. So you can look at some of the research there and decide for yourself. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I don't know what all that means. But okay, now that we've covered the basics of what metabolic syndrome is, and they say if you've got 3 of these, 3 of the 5, then you've got metabolic syndrome. But the interesting thing is, well, here, let's go back to the study. The first one I found was from 14 years ago. 14 years ago, only about 25% of Americans were showing at least 3 of the 5 markers of metabolic syndrome, which I think is still a lot, but it's not good to hear the rest of these numbers. And then in 2018, the study I found, only 12% of Americans had what they considered optimal metabolic health. Wow. Now I do want to point out real quick here, this is where I've been turning, but rather than go up and over that next hill on that other extension, I'm going to go down here another block and extend my trip around back to the house that way. So we'll see what happens. I haven't even driven this yet, so I don't remember exactly where this road goes. So if I get lost and run out of the ability to walk, I need a couple of you standing by with your car keys so you can come give me a ride home. But now back to the studies here. That was 12% showed optimal metabolic health in 2018. And then a study done in 2020, just 2 years later, showed that only 6.8% of the population was showing optimal metabolic health, which means that all but just under 7% of the entire country has at least one marker for metabolic syndrome. And several people, a large percentage, have 3 or more. I did Google some pictures last night, and you can do the same at home, because I would have to find the pictures and make sure I had, copyright permission and all that kind of stuff to insert them into the video. You can Google these for yourself, or whatever search engine you like. Just type in Venice Beach 1970. Then after you look at some of those people, some of those pictures, type in Venice Beach 2022. And look at the difference. Now, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference in the guys that are trying to impress everybody doing the push-ups and the pull-ups and the weightlifting and all that stuff, because a muscle head's pretty much going to be a muscle head. They've always looked the same. But look at the surrounding crowd. You have to search into the 1970 pictures. You have to search the picture to find somebody that looks like they might be a little bit overweight. Then look at the 2022 pictures. You have to search to find somebody that doesn't look overweight. Okay, this might have been a mistake. I'm going to stop here for a second. I think you can see I've already started up the hill quite a bit, but that hill is significantly steeper than the one back a block. But we'll see how it goes. So should we be worried? What can we do about it, we as individuals? Well, the first thing you can do is fix your own health. That's what I'm trying to do here. Because as I've said before, although everyone watching this channel seems to be the exception, it's not very often that people will listen to an old fat guy about nutrition and health. Now, I know I'm not nearly as fat as I used to be, but if you look at most of the standard charts that people use today, I'm still about 30 pounds overweight. I should say 30 pounds into the obese category. After I lose another 30 pounds, I will only be overweight. I won't be obese anymore, according to the scales, the charts. So, but anyway, most people, but you fix your own health first, and then people are going to start asking, well, what'd you do? How'd you do it? It's like I ran into that guy over at Fairway the other day, and you know, he asked me some dumb questions about whether or not I was going to go back to eating the junk when I was done. And that's in a previous video. You can watch all about that. But I said he was a friend of mine, and he called me last night. Well, he didn't call, he texted and said, hey, I've been thinking about what you said. Can we get together sometime this week and talk about this? And while I was slated to leave again this afternoon to head south for the winter, I think it's important enough to talk to this guy about his health and hopefully help fix one more person, that I'm going to delay my trip south just long enough to talk to him and get him started on the right track. So that may set my travel back 3 or 4 days up to a couple of weeks. I might hang around until he gets started by 4 or 5 days, just so I can give him a hand and give him some encouragement if he needs it. Well, here we are. We're at this corner, at the top of that great big hill I just came down. That's the main road out there, and that's the hill I just came up. Now we head back towards the house here. After that long hill, that's not too bad, because I get a nice downhill run to the street I used to come out on, and then I got another uphill climb. Whereas before, when I took the shorter route through, I came up the hill and then turned the corner and had to keep going up the hill. So while that one was a lot steeper, I get a nice little break in the middle here. So we'll see. I'm not exactly sure how far this is, but that extra block, big block, seems like it'll add almost as much as I did going up and down. I'll check the pedometer when I get home and let you know. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Should we be worried? I mean, what was that year? From just 14 years ago, where only 25% of the population was showing markers of metabolic syndrome. Here we are, just 14 years later, all the way down to 6.8%, and that was actually in 2020, which was 2 years ago. I wonder what it is now. But yeah, we need to fix our own health. We can start doing that by helping me spread my message. So if you're still here, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps the channel. It helps YouTube find it, and that's how we get the word out. I mean, I love Dr. Barry, and he's got over 2 million subscribers. But he's a doctor, and there may be a few people out there that watch his stuff and say, yeah, that's all great, Dr. Barry, but what does that mean for me? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you shouldn't watch those channels, because you should. But apparently, the wizened generation, that is the majority of the viewers on my channel, something about the way I walk or talk or explain stuff seems to resonate. I just got a message this morning. I forgot to write down the name of the guy, but he was saying, thanks Bob, because of your videos I'm starting right now. I'm going to go to my pantry and get rid of all the ultra processed food. I'm going to get rid of all the seed oils, and I'm going to go from there. And that's a really good place to start. Get rid of all the ultra processed stuff, get rid of the seed oils, do a little intermittent fasting with 1 meal or 2 meals a day as you progress. Don't force that. And even if you don't go to an all-meat diet, I think you'll see some results from just eliminating the processed food, which includes all the sugar and the seed oils. And now that you've subscribed, you can help me get the word out by sharing one of my videos out on your social media, or send it to a friend of yours that might be showing signs of metabolic syndrome, and let them know that it's not too late to make a change. Look at me. I'm almost 60 years old. So you can do this. There's no reason for you not to do this. Just get up and go do it. You don't have to do it all at once. In fact, I don't recommend that. You know what I believe in. Be 1% better today than you were yesterday. And if it's only 1% better, then that's awesome. I shouldn't say only 1% better. If you continue to grow at 1% a day, think of where you are now and think of where you could be in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. It can be pretty awesome. If you want to see my entire walking series, there should be a link to it right here so you can watch all of the September challenge from the beginning. If you've already watched all of that, there should be another video pop up over here that you haven't seen before. Have yourselves a great day. We will see you tomorrow.